Okay, so welcome. This is class number 2 of Going All the Way with Sex and Money. And it has come to my attention that my emails are not going out to you. I don't think you've gotten a lot of emails from me about this, have you, in the last 2 weeks? Anyone? Okay. So just so you know, there's all kinds of emails set up to go out to you, and we've been having some trouble with our system. I'm actually going to be leaving that system after 7 years because I'm having a lot of trouble with it. So I apologize. Usually I will send out reminders a little bit sooner, and I realized today that you hadn't gotten one. So FYI, but anyway, I'm glad to see you all and that you've put things into your calendar and you need to be here, but I will try to give you a little more prompts on that because I know that's really helpful for people. So tonight is a really chunky class. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump in here. Before I get into tonight's content, I just wanted to do a quick check if there's any like burning questions from last time. Or anything coming up that was confusing. And why don't we just say, put those in the chat and I'll make sure to check that. So if there's things that are coming up. All right, so tonight I wanna explore a bunch of things, and I think these are some really fundamental concepts for the things that we're talking about tonight. I love getting to talk about these things. So in the first class, we talked a lot about what does it mean to really take responsibility for everything in our lives? And I know that that's a hard one for people, right? Because sometimes it feels like, oh, like we're blaming people for things, or like we can internalize that idea in a lot of ways. And so I want to add tonight some things that I think are going to help that make more sense, what I'm talking about there. Because I know that it feels challenging, and for good reason, right? And we're talking about some really tender parts of our lives and parts of our lives that we want to feel fulfilled in. So we talked a lot about our money and our sex stories. And so I'm seeing some of you in the Facebook group now. I'm not seeing a bunch of you. I know some people started to talk to connect with buddies. So it would be great if you haven't added yourself there yet, please add yourself. And if your name on Facebook is not the name that you are registered in this class, then you've got to send me a message and tell me that. Otherwise, I'm not going to add you. I only add people that I know are taking the course. So just let me know if that's the case. So it would be great to hear a little bit, even in the Facebook group, on like what were some things that came up around your sex story and your money story, because that is the foundation. And again, we're going to build on that tonight with like, why is that so important? Like, how does that actually function inside of us? I think most of us have some idea that's at work, but I want to get into actually the nitty gritty of how that works tonight. So we're going to talk about a couple of natural laws that are really, really important to this. And we're going to talk a lot about desire. So continue to be courageous in the things that you're looking at and in the ways in which you are looking. I know that some of the things that we're talking about are challenging, and they're meant to be challenging. I mean, we wouldn't be here in this class if these weren't challenging parts of our lives. So those places where you get really uncomfortable, or where it makes you just kind of like want to put it away and not deal with it, those actually are the things to really pay attention to, because those are the doorways to the things that are going to be breakthroughs for you. And I know that that's happened for me over and over again in my own journey. So I really want to encourage you around that. So one of the things that I think is important to consider is our need to be right, and how is our need to be right getting in the way of us actually having the things that we want to have. So that was a question that I wanted to pose last week, and I'm not sure if I said that at the end. So I just wanted to pose that tonight. There is, we learn that in many different ways. We learn that from our families of origin. We learn that because we were made wrong. We learn that because we were made to defend ourselves, right? So it all comes from a very honest place. And so now we get to be the adult looking at these patterns, looking at the places where these came from, and determining, like, what are the things that are really serving me where I'm going? And what are the patterns that are actually holding me back from having the things that I want to have? And I mentioned that one specifically because the need to be right is a very common need that people have. And it is a very big one in terms of blocking us from having the things that we want. So just to start with that, I'm gonna plant that seed. So I want to start with a meditation tonight before we dive into a lot of intense work. So I'm just going to ask you to put everything down and take things out of your hands, place them on your lap if you can. Sit up straight but comfortably so that you can elongate your spine a little bit, but not in a way that distracts you because it's so uncomfortable. And just close your eyes. And so connecting with your breath, connecting with your body, and just noticing the sensations that are in your body right now. Notice that there is a vibration in your body. You are being physically still right now, but your body is not still. There are many things at work in your body. And so just notice the parts of that that you are aware of. Notice any quickening. Notice any blood movement, any muscles that might be twitching or tight. Notice any tingling sensations. Notice where there's aliveness. Notice where there's pain. Notice where there's ease. And with that awareness, just begin to deepen your breath and send your breath to any part of your body that feels constricted or tight. And allow that breath to open you and to feed your cells and to invigorate you with that fresh life force. It's that gift you get to give yourself every moment of every day. And so just send that breath to any place in your body where you're feeling pain and let the healing power of that fresh breath attend to that part of your body and trust it to do its work. If you want, you can see that breath as light and you can see that flowing through your body. You actually are a light being. The matter of your body feels dense, but there's actually much spaciousness in your body. And so bringing your awareness to that spaciousness as you continue with some full, deep, generous, expansive breaths. And allow yourself to receive the gift of those breaths. Soften your body into a place of reception rather than pushing or working hard to take in those breaths. And as you feel more open, expanded, and relaxed by this life force, continue to breathe in those easeful breaths, continue to receive them. And connect to yourself as part of the divine energy that our entire world is made of. You are a direct extension of that divine energy. You are not separate from it. You are not exiled from it. And so if you can imagine right now the crown of your head opening and becoming more receptive to that divine life force, that universal life force that is all around you. And see that divine life force pouring down through the crown of your head, filling your entire body with light. And just see that light filling in any of the dark places, any of the tight places or the crevices or the blockages that you might sense in your body. So see that light fill every part of you, that divine life force, and clear anything that you no longer need, creating space for you to bring in all that you're ready to have, and all that you're ready to receive. And feel yourself as the beautiful light being that you know yourself to be. And again, pay attention to the sensation in your body and the vibrations in your body. And with that awareness and that bringing in of that light, do you notice any difference? And just notice and accept it. I'm going to offer a little attunement, and I'm going to invite you to speak these words softly, aloud. I know who I am in truth. I know what I am in truth. I know how I serve in truth. I am word through my body. I am word through my vibration. I am word through my knowing of myself as word. I am free. I am free. I am free. Take in one more deep breath, allowing that to sink into your body and to illuminate your being. And when you are ready, let your eyes flutter open and come back into this present moment, ready to receive what we're going to talk about tonight. Okay. Beautiful. So I want to start with a core piece of this class and the key to your being able to create the life that you really want tonight, and that is desire. So we have many false ideas and many judgments about desire that come from our family, that come from religion, culture, media. Many of us have learned that desire is bad, that we shouldn't want things, that we shouldn't need anything because it means that we're attached to things and attachments are bad. We learn that sexual desire is something that we should control and keep quiet, right? Especially as women. And that it's this wild part of us that's not okay, and it has to be tamed and it has to be contained. I think there's a lot of fear about the power of women's sexuality in our culture right now. But there certainly has been, and there's a long history of that for millennia, right? So desire is part of our wildness, and that is a good thing. I want to pledge to you a very different idea about desire tonight. Desire is essential, okay? Your desire helps you get up out of bed every single day, right? Your desire is what makes you want to be a better person. It's what makes you want to grow. Desires are what motivate us to create art, to create community, to build businesses, and to do creative projects, to create our relationships, to make more beauty in the world, to make the world better, right? The desires that move in you direct your life. And so desire comes from the universe, spirit, God, goddess, the cosmic creator, all that is, whatever you want to call it. You know, insert your word. The divine, right? It comes from the universe, and it is seeking expression through you. So I'll use different words for that energy during this class, and I know that everybody has their own beliefs about that, and that's absolutely fine. So just know that if I say God or spirit or universe or whatever label, I'm talking about all of that. You can insert the word that you need to insert. Don't get hung up on labels if that's a thing for you. I know sometimes it can push people's buttons. So most of us are taught that we actually can't have what we want in life. We're raised with that idea, and we witness all kinds of people all over the world not get what they want and need. We see that a lot. We hear it, we're taught it. We see that we have to work really, really hard, but then we're still not going to get where we want to be, right? We may have seen that modeled a lot in the people in our lives. And so we get these ideas that we really can't have what we want, or that it's even wrong to want it to begin with, right? That there's something inherently wrong with us if we have a desire. And that judgment that you might have about your own desire is one of the reasons that you've been unable to have the things that you really want. We have to get clear about desire. We have to be able to fully embrace it in the healthiest possible way. So if you've seen others not getting what they want, and that's taught you that you can't really have what you want, that, right, there's an imprint that happens. You know, if you witness that over and over, there's an imprint happening there. And so this goes back to that piece that we talked a little bit about last week around like social justice and different communities that don't have as much, right? Or where things are happening. It's like if you're seeing that imprint over and over again, it's imprinting a particular kind of experience for you. And that can be lots of different things, right? And so that's part of how those things get reinforced. So this is a really, I think, critical part of why wealth disparities and sexual traumas both will remain in place generation after generation after generation, right? Because some of it it's not our own experience. We're taking on the experience through our environment, from people in our environment. Like your mother went through some serious trauma and it impacted her and the way she was able to be present for you or not, right? You will take on that trauma in a particular way. There's lots of evidence now that shows that trauma does get carried through our DNA, which I think I mentioned as well. So it's important to really get to the bottom of this piece. And sometimes it can be very hard to move beyond what our family of origin or our communities have if we want something different or something more, because then also there can be all that judgment or all of that, well, who do you think you are? And, we don't have it. This is what we have over here. And who are you to go over there? Who are you to want more? Who are you to have this different experience? So back to desire. True desire is divine. If you are desiring things, it can only come from one of two places. So if it's a true desire, it comes from spirit. It comes from God. It comes from the universe. Insert your word, right? It comes through you. And if it's not that, then it's coming from a dysfunctional place inside of yourself. And it's very important that you hold the truth about which one it really is, right? In order to know which one it is, that's vitally important, that you really be in truth with yourself. How do you determine, is it coming from a dysfunctional place? That question always comes up, right? Is it impinging on the free will of yourself or somebody else in your life? If your desire, because people will, inevitably someone will say, well, what if I'm a pedophile and I have the desire to, have sexual relations with children, right? That's harmful to children, right? That's a dysfunctional desire. That is not a desire that came from the universe. The universe wasn't like, wow, this is a really great idea for everybody involved, right? So that's a more like extreme example. But so asking the question, is it going to impinge on someone's freedom? Is it going to harm someone, including yourself? And if not, then it's a perfectly healthy desire. There's nothing wrong with your desire. I think a lot of times we can feel like, oh, well, it's not for me, right? I'm not, other people get to have that thing, but I don't get to have it. The universe doesn't work like that, right? The universe isn't like, we only have so many, ice cream cones to give out. And, you haven't been good enough. It's not like there's like a Santa Claus. I feel like we live in like almost like a Santa Claus story around this of like, oh, I've been bad, so I don't get the ice cream cone that all my friends are getting, right? And, if you imagine a small child walking by an ice cream store every day and everybody else is getting ice cream, and the child is looking in the window and wanting the ice cream and wishing they could and being told, nope, but you can't, you're not good enough. You don't deserve it. We can't afford it. I'm sorry, you can't have it, over and over and over and over and over and over again. That would get to a point of like abusive, right? And that's kind of how people approach this in the world, as if it's like we're being held back, not you, not you, not you. It doesn't actually make any sense that that's how that would work. So if spirit gave you the desire for something, spirit also gives you the way to the desire. That has to be there, right? The idea of the ice cream can't be present if ice cream isn't also like a reality, right? So the way to the desire is also here. And spirit gives you desire so that you can create more life and so that you can grow, right? Life has one purpose, which is to create more life. And spirit wants you to use your life to create more life. That is how life works. That is the purpose of life. And if you look at every life form on earth, it all works that way, right? There's not one life form on earth that doesn't work like that. So it gives us the tools to be able to do that. We all have access to all of the information that is available in the universe. None of us are less privy to it than others, right? But what is different is that we each grow up in a very specific environment with specific people and specific circumstances that affect our ability to create the life we want, that creates those imprints on us. And we're going to talk about how those imprints work tonight. And that give us either the belief that we can or the belief that we can't, right? And so let's talk a little bit about how we develop those beliefs, because we are full of beliefs and ideas and values that are controlling the results that we're getting in our life. And so we've got to start to look under the hood to create some understanding about that. right? So that's why I had you start with that story last week, right? Because in that money story, in that sex story, there are ideas and beliefs that you've taken on, even if you can look at them and say, oh, that one's bullshit, or I don't really buy that, or I don't believe that anymore. You still, there was an imprint that happened, right? If that's in your consciousness. And so it's about, let's look at what I need to understand on a deeper level so that I can change what's not working. So let's talk a little bit about our subconscious programming. And I want to start with that by talking about who we are and these 4 important parts of who we are, right? So number 1, we are a spiritual being, right? We are a spiritual being that is living, number 2, in a physical body. All right? So the physical body is the vehicle for that spirit. And then within that physical body, we are gifted with an intellect, right? And so that is that ability to think or reason, which is different from any other life form on our planet, right? We have that intellect, and that is what makes us human and not another kind of animal, right? So we can use that intellect to think about things, to ask questions, to evaluate, right? Which determines the 4th part of who we are, which is our emotions, right? So we feel through emotions. Emotions are a physical experience. We feel them in our bodies. That's where we experience them. And many of us are trained to be very led around by our emotions. Now, our emotions it's an information system, right? It's actually a very important and very powerful information system. They give us information, and they help us to see how we are thinking if we pay attention, right? If you are feeling bad emotionally, look at what's going on in your thoughts, because your thoughts are not going to be very far away from your emotions. And if you want to bring order to your understanding and remove confusion, you can do that through looking at that connection, right? Oh, I'm feeling sad because I just realized that it's my mom's birthday and I miss her terribly. She's been gone for 10 years or whatever, right? We can start to see the connection, right? We feel an emotion and it triggers thoughts. We have a thought, it can trigger an emotion. There's a synergy that's happening there. So we can make new choices. We can do something different. We can choose that we're not going to get stuck in an emotion, right? Emotions, they move, right? It's consciousness in the body, and emotions are consciousness interfacing with the body. And so we can move our consciousness to then shift the feeling that we're having, so that we don't get stuck in a place like depression or despair or sadness or anger or frustration. And I'm going to talk more about why that's really, really important tonight, other than the fact that it just makes us feel bad. So it's bigger than that. So I think when a lot of people hear the word mind, they think of the brain, right? And the mind is not the brain. The brain is a tool that we think with, right? But the mind is universal. Your mind is connected to that all that is, right? And your mind actually exists in every cell of your body. It exists in every part of the world, right? That is the universal mind. And it is beyond measure how powerful the universal mind is. We all have access and are a part of that universal mind. So I've given you some handouts for tonight. If you don't have them in front of you, it's okay. I'm going to show you some images to help explain the parts of our mind. There was a stick figure that was originated in actually 1934 by Dr. Thurman Fleet. And he used it to demonstrate the idea of the universal mind and body and how human beings work with it. So so we have two pieces to our mind, right? So the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, which I'll talk about in a minute, right? So this was his stick figure, right? Notice the difference in the size of the mind compared to the body, right? Again, that entire mind is living and existing in the entire body. There's not a part of the body where it actually doesn't exist. So all of the power and knowledge that exists in the universe is readily available for our use. And with it, we can create extraordinary lives, right? What is required then is to figure out how do we tap into this knowledge and power and use it for the benefit of others and also for ourselves. So I want you to view this top of the head of the stick figure as the conscious mind. So this is the part of the mind that thinks and reasons. It is the part of your mind where your free will resides. Your conscious mind can accept or reject any idea. The thoughts that you consciously choose to hold will direct the outcome of any situation or circumstance in your life. You hold that power. This is your choice, right? And this choice is what makes your freedom possible in the truest, deepest, most pure sense of the word. So the subconscious mind is the emotional or the feeling mind. Your subconscious mind is the most marvelous part of your mind. And what is so amazing about this part of you is that it carries every thought, feeling, or idea that comes through your conscious mind with exact detail through you in emotions and actions. Okay? So your subconscious takes everything that comes into you, it synthesizes all of it, and then it expresses through you, through your emotions and through your actions. We all do this without realizing it all the time. It's how it works, right? So the subconscious mind doesn't have the ability to reject something, right? So whatever ideas you choose to impress upon your subconscious will become part of you. Those ideas will then express themselves with conscious assistance. And then that's when something can become a habit, right? So if you've taken in a particular idea and you haven't rejected it, and it has been really impressed upon you. And again, as I mentioned at the top, if it's been impressed upon you over and over, it's going to be even a much stronger idea, right? And so then there might be specific things that you do, reactions that you have, actions you take, which will become habits around that particular idea. Check in, let's see if there's some things on the chat, make sure everyone is following. That's how God is taught in church. It's hard to believe. It's a hard belief to shake. Do you mean the Santa Claus God? Yeah, okay, going back a minute. Mind is working through brain. Is it correct to say that? Yes, absolutely, right? So the mind is, yes, the Santa. Yeah, absolutely. The mind is the brain is a tool, right? But the mind is bigger than your brain. And many of us just think of our mind as being our brain, right? Your whole body is your mind. So the subconscious mind does not, this is really key. Your subconscious mind does not know the difference between what is real and what is imagined, because it can't reject or refute anything. So it will just accept everything that comes into it. So if you say something like, I wish it could be different, right? That's a thought that's coming from the conscious mind. It's not something that's being expressed from the subconscious mind. It's a thought about like wanting to be somewhere else, right? The subconscious mind is just going to regurgitate whatever we put into it. It would never say like, oh, I want it to be different over here, right? Because it's just like whatever is there is what is. Again, whether it's true, whether it's real, or whether it's imagined. So the body is the material medium in which we live. All thoughts, ideas, and feelings which are consciously chosen and subconsciously accepted must be and will be expressed through the physical body in one way or another. Okay. See the ice cream. They were a little late on their cue. I already gave the ice cream example. So if we don't give conscious, healthy expression to something, if we suppress it, if we push it down, then it's going to express in an unhealthy way somewhere in the body, right? Many of us might be familiar with that idea. You may have experienced health issues where you were able to make a connection to like, oh, I can see where that came from, you know, or that relates to this thing that's been going on in my life, or this thing that I've been struggling with, right? A really good example of that is that they have found very powerful connections between anger, someone who is very angry and expresses a lot of anger, and heart disease, right? There's a very clear connection. We have research that connects it, right? That anger is very, very hard on our hearts. And so someone might have a heart attack, right? Who's living in a lot of anger. That's the connection. So if that anger is not able to be expressed in a healthy way, it's gonna come out in another way in the body. And that's just one example, right? So the expressions of these ideas that you take in and that you then experience in your body are going to determine the conditions in your life, the circumstances in your life, the environment, and the results of the things that you're doing in your life, right? So in other words, your entire external life is being created by what is going on in your subconscious mind all of the time. This works the same way for everyone. There is nobody that this does not work this way for. So, where does desire live? You're born with desire in your subconscious mind. You're born to be free. You are born to create life. Life creates more life. You're born to be a success. Again, there's no one among us that wasn't born that way. And yet, most of us are programmed to stay right where we are. And that happens as we begin to interact and we take in the messages around us in our lives. And that happens from day one, right? So as infants, we had no conscious mind developed, okay? So it's like that subconscious mind was just open, right? And so there's everything going on around us, you know, it's like, mom and dad are fighting, right? That goes into your subconscious mind. You just take that in. Everything that happens around you, you know, oh, I experienced like overwhelming love, right? So then all that overwhelming love went right into the subconscious. You know, I was told I was stupid and that I'd never amount to anything. That goes right into the subconscious, right? So the thoughts, so positive, negative, anything, right? So all of the thoughts and the ideas and the emotions of your parents and of the people in authority and all of the people that were around you when you were very little went right into you. And you accepted them because you didn't have the ability to reject those things, right? So they went right into your subconscious. You didn't have a conscious mind yet. We don't grow a conscious mind until about age 7. That's when we really get that fully formed conscious mind. And we can begin to think in more abstractions at that point. There are many developmental things that happen, right? So around age 7, you put a cap on the subconscious. And you began to experience the things in your life consciously as your conscious mind developed. So then what happens is that we start to develop beliefs, right? But our beliefs are given to us by other people, right? And many of the beliefs that you're given are based on all kinds of dysfunctional thinking that prevent you from thinking what you really want to think, right? If you could just get those other beliefs out of the way, right? And so what happens is those beliefs, one by one, you're born with that desire, that bright, beautiful, clear desire for creation, for more life, for joy, right? For really fully living. That is there. As your parents and the people around you give you new beliefs, one by one, those beliefs come into your subconscious mind and they begin to obscure your own desire because you can't question them. You're accepting them as truth, right? And it gets to a point where you can no longer see the desire that is there in the heart of your subconscious mind. And that desire is why you are here. It is what you are here to do in your life. It's why you chose to be here. And so now what we have is a path to your own desire that isn't as clear as it could be. Depending, right? Depending on how limiting those beliefs are that you've taken in. And for many people, you might begin to think, it's not even possible. I can't even have that, right? This is some pie in the sky dream. Nobody else in my neighborhood has done it. Nobody in my family went to college. No, whatever the thing is. And so then those beliefs that you have vibrate a series of cells in the brain, right? And that vibrates into your body. And that vibrates off of you. And so this is where many people are sending out very mixed messages because they might be saying one thing like, oh, I really, want to have an aeronautics career. I want to go to school and study astrophysics. And, I have this big dream, right? You might be saying a thing, but then there's this whole other conflicting message inside of you. And so your vibration is saying something totally different. And so that internal message might be, there's no money for you to go to a program like that. Nobody, girls can't be aeronautic engineers. You can't do that. No one's ever been to the moon. That can't happen, whatever. If it was, 50 years ago. So there's a double binding message then that's happening, right? And so then what happens is that we feel like, God, I'm working towards this thing and I'm like, I really want it. I really do want it. I'm gonna stop my share for a minute just to show you. But it's like, yes, yes, I want it. Come closer. But you're doing this, right? This is like it's like one hand is up, the other is saying, come closer. That's the energetic that is received. And that's why oftentimes we aren't getting the things that we want, even though we feel like, God, but I really do want it. I've been working really hard. I don't get it. Why isn't this working? Why isn't the love of my life showing up? Whatever, right? So people then move away from you and your desire actually is unclear, right? And you're not going to be able to get what you want if there's not the clarity, right? You have to get all of that in alignment. So back to those 4 parts, that spirit, the body, and the vibration of the body, right? The mind and the intellect, and your feeling state, all of that has to be in alignment. You all with me? Questions? Good? Okay. Ask questions if you have them. So let's talk about, so we've been talking about the law of vibration, okay? So the law of vibration states that everything vibrates and nothing rests. Every single thing in the universe. If you just even look at this photograph, the vibration is almost coming off of the photograph, isn't it? Like you can feel the vibration of the color purple of these flowers. This, I think that's heather, right? You can feel the vibration of the sun. It's part of why we love a sunset. Who doesn't love the vibration and the energy of a sunset, right? It never gets old because it's pure life through light, which has an amazing frequency, right? So everything has a vibration, nothing rests, and vibrations of the same frequency resonate with each other, right? So like attracts like energy. Everything is energy, including your thoughts. Your thoughts have a vibration, right? And so consistently focusing on a particular thought or idea is going to attract its vibrational match, right? It's going to attract that which is in resonance. As you begin to think and feel something, that vibration zings through the universe. It comes off of you, right? And it resonates with other like frequencies. And as it resonates with those frequencies, it brings those things into your life. And what happens sometimes with people is that they're switching their frequencies so much because they might be over here, but then they're like, oh, but I don't know, but then they're back over here, right? They're switching. So a lot of times by the time the thing manifests and is heading towards them, they're actually no longer in the frequency to receive it. And probably we've all experienced that on some level. It's like, that's what that was. Oh my gosh, right? We like realize it afterwards. Like, oh, I did want that. I asked for that. And, you know, and sometimes we don't even see the manifestation. It'll just go right by us. So if part of you is saying, I want an amazing relationship, right? Or I want to make more money. But your belief is, I'm never going to find the perfect lover, you know, or I don't deserve that, or nobody I know has that, so I can't possibly have it either, right? Again, that's the mixed message. That's the, you know, one hand's up and one hand is like, yes, come here, right? That's the mixed signal. And when there's a mixed signal and there's not a strong enough alignment and clarity towards the thing that you want, you're not going to get the thing that you want because the vibration isn't clear. The frequency is off. And so this alignment piece is very, very important in order to get the things that you want. You have to control your thoughts, which are the big part that run amok on us, right? So that they're vibrating with the right frequency, or you're not going to get the thing that you want. So you can remove time and space from your desires. Time and space around desire is constructed, right? When you give yourself time, you will automatically create space. And when there is space, space will be filled, right? Voids are always filled. So if you close the time and space gap on having the thing that you want, you'd be amazed at what can happen, sometimes in a very short period of time. You don't have to wait, right? That's an idea. We learn that. Now, everything, that said, everything has an incubation, right? For humans, it's 9 months, right? For kittens, it's something different, right? But everything has an incubation, right? An oak tree has its own incubation. So there is an incubation that is at work that is a natural part of the natural order. And when we put these like constructed time and space ideas, that we just have to acknowledge that that is constructed. And so we can shorten that, we can lengthen that. It doesn't have to take 20 years to be a master at that thing, you know? So, you know, a lot of people study the law of attraction. I actually am going to share something with you from Esther and Jerry Hicks tonight that I think is super powerful. But I think one of the things people miss in this idea of law of attraction is that it's really about the vibration that we're resonating with in the universe. And the idea that we have to go and get it, we have to go, and you're manifesting all the time. You know, this idea like, okay, I'm going to manifest now. You actually are manifesting right now. You're manifesting every minute of every day through the very process that I'm talking about. And so if you're thinking that you want something, but everything in your body and your action says that you're not going to get it, then you're not going to get it, right? Those have to be in alignment. And that doesn't mean that it's like, it's perfect. Like we have to be perfect, and we can't ever have like a thought that's like, oh, that thought wasn't helpful. We just have to bring ourselves back. But when we have that persistent idea that we can't let go of, and that continues to nod us and tell us we can't, it is going to have an impact. And so we have to get our thought processes under control, right? And not, you know, and have what the Dalai Lama would call a skillful mind. Most people don't have skillful minds. And this has nothing to do with how smart you are. That's not what I'm talking about, right? But it's about, I am not going to give energy to this thought that is not in alignment with what I want to create in my life, right? So here's the thing I want to share from Esther and Jerry Hicks. So emotions have vibrations. All emotions have vibrations. Feelings have vibrations. They vibrate at different frequencies, and some are higher frequencies and some are lower frequencies. There is a hierarchy to these frequencies. And this is the hierarchy in this chart. So you can see in this chart, there's a range of emotions that we might feel. And you want to be vibrating at the frequencies that are on the left side of the page. This is a great chart to actually print out. It didn't even fit on one slide, so it's on 2 slides here, but it's in your handouts. It's a great thing to print out and keep where you can see it. Okay, so the left side are positive, creative, powerful frequencies. These are the frequencies we want to be resonating with as much as possible, right? The right side is a list of frequencies that are lower, that are less productive, even destructive frequencies in order of, productivity and destructivity, okay? So towards the top are the ones that are closer to neutral frequencies, like boredom, pessimism, right? And the bottom is where the really destructive frequencies are, like fear and grief and depression and despair. So when you're finding yourself on the right side of this chart, it's very important that you work to bring yourself higher on the list, right? So the highest vibrations, number 1, are joy, love, appreciation, gratitude, faith, and trust. So I want you to notice that there is a lot of action in those high vibrations. There are a lot of actions you can take to bring yourself into those vibrations, right? Gratitude is a very good example. Number 2 is passion. Number 3 is enthusiasm, eagerness, happiness. Number 4 is positive expectation and belief, right? I'm trusting that something positive is going to happen, right? Number 5 is overall optimism, right? Glass is half full, optimistic. I'm optimistic about things, right? After that comes hopefulness. I'm hopeful about things, right? And then number 7 is contentment, right? Which is almost like, that's a little more neutral, right? But I'm content, still feeling positive, right? So then when we move over to the lower vibrations, boredom, pessimism, frustration, irritation, and impatience, right? So we start to get into like those are a little more active, right? Than boredom and pessimism. Then there's overwhelm, then disappointment, then doubt and worry and blame and discouragement, and then anger and resentment, and then revenge, hatred and rage, jealousy, insecurity, guilt, and unworthiness. And then finally, fear, grief, depression, despair, and powerlessness. So if you find yourself on the right side of the chart, even if you just raise your frequency a couple of emotions higher, you're going to be in a much better place, right? So if you can get from despair to hatred, that's actually a better place. I think sometimes people are surprised by that one, but if you think about it, hatred and rage are more active, right? Fear, grief, depression, despair, powerlessness, those are like arresting. You know, people literally like can't do anything when they get what's the word I want? they just literally get stymied. They are stuck when they're in those places. So yeah, stuck, yes. That's a lot of low vibrations. Yeah, it is a lot of low vibrations. And we if we're spending a lot of time in jealousy, right? That's a low vibration. It's not a great place to be. But if we could get ourselves from jealousy to disappointment, right? That would be a much better place, right? I'm not so jealous at this point, but I feel disappointed by it. Okay, way better, right? It's very hard to get yourself from like way at the bottom of this list to the top. It doesn't usually work that way. But if you can get, again, just like a couple of emotions higher, right? Or if you can possibly get yourself over to the left side there, you're going to be in a much better place. And really, one of the quickest and most effective ways to do this is through gratitude, right? That's why I pointed out those ones at the top are very active, right? There's activities that go with expressing gratitude, feeling that we're really truly in our faith, that we're in trust, appreciating what we have or people in our lives or whatever, expressing joy and love, right? There's a lot of actions we can take to get ourselves into that. Gratitude, I think, is one of the easiest ways to bring us back into joy and pleasure and love faster than just about anything else. And we'll talk a little bit about gratitude practices. It helps you to not be overly determined by negative emotions, right? So if you don't currently have a gratitude practice, I do want to really encourage you to create one. And I will offer some suggestions as part of this course for how to create some gratitude practices, because what you practice over and over is very, very important to how you create your life, as we've been talking about, right? Okay. Some questions here. Pause. So Flor, how do you see the relationship between intuition and the conscious or subconscious mind? It's a really good question, Flor. Because a lot of times I think people convince themselves that their intuition is telling themselves something when it actually is their subconscious mind that's telling them something. So, for instance, if there's something that you really want to do, right, and or let's put it this, if there's something you really actually don't want to do, right? But the offer is in front of you, you need to make a decision, you need to respond, and maybe there's some reason why it's uncomfortable, right? And your intuition actually might be very clear that this is a good thing for you, that this actually will help you grow, that this will help you to create the thing that you're trying to create in your life, to take this step. But you really don't want to do it. A lot of times people will say, oh, my intuition just is telling me it's just not right. You know, it doesn't feel right. I think that it's tricky. I think that people play tricks on themselves with their intuition. True intuition is going to be experienced in the body, right? It is going to be experienced on these multiple levels that we're talking about, right? That alignment is going to be there. And but the subconscious mind is very wily. It's very savvy. It knows how to survive, right? And what the subconscious mind wants at all times is to keep you safe. And so it's going to do everything in its power to keep you safe. Now, you making a big change in your life is not safe to the subconscious mind, right? A big change is something that's going to be very uncomfortable. It's going to take you somewhere that is unknown, and that doesn't feel safe. And so it is going to avoid that at all costs. And so this is why I say it can get confusing, because there could be a very strong imperative coming from your subconscious mind saying, don't do that, right? And we all have those voices that come from our subconscious mind. All of us have a sense, a little bit at least, of how that subconscious mind works. For some of us, it might be, you can't afford that, right? That might be a real common one to keep you safe, right? Another one might be, you know, like, oh, you've got children to take care of. You're not going to be a good mother if you do that, right? It might play on on a role that we play in our life. It might play on shame, right? It comes from something in our environment that we took in probably at a young age. You weren't a mother at a young age, but you might have learned some very clear messages about mothering at a young age, or about what you needed to be in order to be a good person, right? And so then those things are going to be at work. And so this is where I do think it is tricky. It is really a good question. And I would love to actually talk more with you all about that. I would love to hear your thoughts about this one. On this note, Jory says, I had a boyfriend who used to call people a negative intuit, which is, I think, when fear is clouding and the assumption goes to darkness. I think that's helpful to think about. Yeah, that's a good way to put it, right? So, and I also think that it's a way that people don't take responsibility. Well, I'm waiting for a sign. Really? You could be waiting your whole life for the right sign. I mean, people use that all the time, right? When they just don't want to do something. And that's just the reality. They just don't want to. So the more quickly you can be honest with yourself about those kinds of things, like, I just don't want to do this. Okay, then let's see what's underneath that. That's where you're going to get real important data and information that's going to help you move towards the thing that you want and get out of your own way. But we're in our own way all the time. And this is one of the major ways in which we are in our way. So let's see. What did I say about the time gap, time frame continuum? That it's constructed. It's constructed. And so, I guess another way to also just think about it is that there's a reason why deadlines work. Right? Deadlines work because we will take as much time and space as we can take for any given thing. Am I right? Can I get a witness? Right? Yes. We all know what that's like. It's like, oh, I have an extra week to do that thing. Do you still get it done by the original date? No. You're like, oh, great. I can put that off for another week. Right? So we will always fill the time and space that we have. And so why not shrink the time and space Why keep telling ourselves, oh, it's going to take me 5 years to get out of debt, or it's going to take me, whatever the goal is, and the time frame we put on it, we can shrink that. And I'm not saying that everything happens instantly. So that's why I said, everything does have an incubation. Things do need to incubate. But these time constructs that we create, if we wipe those out, you'd be amazed at how quickly things can change in your life. Yes, that is a lot of low vibrations, Karishma. Dawn, so what about life events that are legitimately sad, etc.? How do we process this? Yeah, I mean, and this is not to say like, don't ever feel sadness, don't ever feel bad. It is what it is, right? Sometimes we need grief. We need to feel the grief. We need to mourn. We need to feel the sadness. I think the key is to acknowledge the emotion and allow yourself to really feel it and move through you, right? It's when people start to grab on to, I think an easy example is with grief. If you lost somebody important to you, a lot of times people hang on to the grief because that's how they're hanging on to the person. If I just keep feeling this grief, then I feel connected to my mom who's gone, right? Or whoever. So what if you could stay connected to her in a totally different way that brought you more joy, and you could feel the grief and then let it move through? And again, there's not like a specific time frame that it takes, for things like that. And we can work with our grief. We can get to the bottom of the grief and understand it and keep moving, which is what we're meant to do, right? I've had a lot of friends. I guess I'm at that age, it's like all of my friends are either losing parents or taking care of sick parents, myself included. And so it's been interesting to watch people's practices around this. I haven't lost a parent myself yet, but it's been interesting to watch people's practices, like creating an altar. A friend of mine created an altar for her mother. And it just brought her so much joy, to have this altar set up, these beautiful photos. She got herself a little Christmas tree this year, and she hung all these stuff and photos of her mom in the little tree. And, and so because her mother loved Christmas, so she just like did it for her mother. She never had a Christmas tree on her own. So, we can take action to move through emotions and feel differently, to feel better. So yeah, it's not to say don't feel it. It's saying it's don't get stuck in that emotion. And when you don't want to be stuck, then how do you move to another place? What's the action that you can take? Where does humor or amusement fit on the positive side? Good question. Where do you think it fits, Flor? What number? Oh, did you hold up she thinks it's up high. Yeah, I mean, I think humor and amusement can be a part of joy. I think they can be a part of love. I think they can be a part of enthusiasm. I think they're a part of a lot of those, actually. So, I think they're a way that we maybe express some of those. But yeah, that's why, like people who are funny, like we like to have them around because they can lift the spirits very quickly, right? In a somber space. That's very helpful. So, yeah. Tell us how, AJ, to shorten your goal. We're working on it. We're building it. This is what we're doing. I love it. She's like, right now. I think number one is you have to stop deciding it's going to take that long, right? That's really the number one step. It's like, if you're sitting there going, oh my God, it's just going to take me forever to do this. And if you're saying things like that out loud, you're creating that reality, right? And so it's like, so it's first of all, shifting the idea that it needs to take long and to say, universe, I am ready for the love of my life now. I am opening to the love of my life now. I am, whatever the thing is, it's having a new conversation inside your head and with the universe about it, right? So, and then it's taking action that matches that, right? And so that's why, we're talking about these different levels, because if you're just sitting here thinking like, oh, I love myself, I have all the abundance in the world, I'm wonderful, but then you're not taking any action that matches that, there's a dissonance, right? There's not an alignment. So, people that think that the law of attraction is this passive thing, right? Or manifestation is this passive thing where like, I'm just going to sit over here and I'm just going to think my way to it. That's not how it works, right? And that movie, The Secret, was super problematic in many ways because, it did kind of portray, there's a lot of great people in that film. I was surprised at some of the portrayals in it. It kind of portrayed this idea that like you just think it and a check is going to show up in the mail. No, it doesn't work that way, right? There has to be some real action. There has to be full alignment in the body. And I think that's where people are often stopping short. They're telling themselves a thing, but they don't really believe it. And that not really believing it is very alive in their body and their vibration. So the law of attraction has the word action in it. Yes, you are right. Good point. Yes. All right. So I want to talk about the law of polarity. Okay. So the law of polarity says that you can't have an up without a down. You can't have a wrong without a right. You can't have a dark without a light. Can't have a left without a right. So you can't desire that perfect partner and not have that person exist. They exist. You wouldn't desire it if it wasn't possible. It's already here. You couldn't be given the desire to have any specific kind of thing, whether it's a relationship or a sexual experience or a desire for money or some other kind of abundance, without that being present already. And so it's not, so that's the thing with the law of attraction thing. It's like, it's not that you have to attract it. It's already here. You have to receive it. You have to align with it. The presence of the thing and the fulfillment of the thing is that's the other side in terms of the law of polarity, right? So everything has an opposite. Everything has an opposite. And the opposites are equal, right? Hot, cold, whatever it is. And so what this also means is that anything you experience on the inside also exists simultaneously on the outside. And so if you want something on the inside, it already exists around you. You can't have the desire for something without the means for receiving it being present as well. This is super, super important because we get in our own way all the time by telling ourselves it's not possible, right? So in the absence of that which you are not, that which you are is not. You get me, right? Polar opposites are what make existence possible, right? If what you are if what you are not didn't coexist with what you are, then what you are could not be. So don't condemn or criticize what you're not or what you don't want, because then you are actually criticizing what you want. You are criticizing what you are. So who you are being is essential in everything we're talking about. Sometimes who you're being means, if who you're being is continuing to give you particular outcomes, right? A particular experience in your life, a particular kind of person that's showing up, then there's an adjustment that has to be made. There's something that you have to give up. And this is where a lot of people stop. It's in that place where I need to give something up, because a lot of people don't want to do that, right? There's something that you have to give up about who you're being right now in order to have the thing that you want, which is a different result from the results you're getting now. Because who you are being is what has created your current circumstance. And so as you change who you are being and what you are living into, you will have a different experience, result, and circumstance. You have to, because the vibration is going to reflect it. Right? So if you want a new result, you have to do something new. Repeat the part about not condemning. Yes. So as we're talking about the law of polarity, right? If you condemn the thing you think you're not, it's the polar opposite of the thing that you are, which means then you are condemning yourself. Right? Because there's the like vibration also that is at work here. Does that make more sense? Is that clear? Still confusing? Right? So it's kind of like, and it's like, it's so cliche where people will be like, well, what's that saying? You spot it, you got it, right? Like when, it's like if the thing that you're in judgment about is the thing that you have over here, right? You're judging it on the outside, but actually it's at work inside of yourself if it's bothering you, kind of thing. It's a little bit of that, right? That if I'm going to condemn the dark, well, then I'm also condemning the light, because the dark is the other half of the light, right? The two halves are what make the whole. I can't, if I draw a circle, right, like the circle on that slide, right? If there's a circle there, I can't have the left side of the circle without the right side of the circle. It's not possible. The circle would not exist without both, right? I can't have the top of it without the bottom of it. And so we can get more abstract about that. We can't have the seen world without the unseen world, right? We can't have the physical without the spiritual. Yes, good. Joy asks, are you saying that in the abstract, like a film image or negative, condemning that is at the same time condemning the positive? Yes. Okay. Yes. Good. We've got it. Okay. How are we for time? All right. I want to leave a little time in case there's some questions at the end. I'm going to talk about some common patterns. I want to, and we'll talk a little bit more about wounds next week. But our wounds, because those wounds and the things that contributed to the wounds are in our subconscious, we will recreate the same wounds over and over until we heal them. Okay. I actually, I'm just going to talk about this for a few minutes. There's not one of us that doesn't have wounds. We all have wounds. It is part of our humanity, right? It's absolutely part of our humanity. It is very essential that we all work to heal our wounds so that they no longer have power over us. When a wound is not healed, we are going to recreate it over and over, okay? Because it's in the subconscious and because we're giving it energy. It's an automatic reaction we have. We have all these automatic reactions related to our wounds, right? Like maybe you get defensive when someone questions you because you were made wrong all the time as a child, right? Or you avoid intimacy because you went through some kind of abuse or you were molested as a child, and your subconscious ideas about what intimacy is or what's possible with other people intimately are negative. So there might be a part of you that's telling yourself that you want intimacy, but then you're totally preventing yourself from having it over and over again because you're reliving the dynamic of intimacy that you had as a child. You don't trust, you avoid. If you were neglected as a child, if you were not given the love that you needed, you might hide your needs as an adult and make it seem like you're very, very independent and you don't have any because you learned that you didn't get to have needs, that it wasn't okay to have them, that they weren't going to be met, and that you were going to feel disappointed, right? And so then there's this part of you that's always seeking love and approval outside of yourself because you were left with that need, right? I mean, there's so many wounds, right? These are just a few examples. So those wounds happened when they happened. The wounding happened when it happened. But as they live on in your subconscious mind and are not being actively worked with and healed, you will relive them over and over again. And what that then does is essentially it re-wounds yourself over and over. And this is a tremendously disempowering cycle to be in. And many, many people experience it. And I'm sure a lot of people in this class have experienced this. And so it's not until you can take responsibility for healing these parts of your experience so that you can move forward and stop wounding yourself over and over that you're going to break that cycle. And this is really hard because sometimes we feel like I'm not ready or it feels too big. You know, it can feel really hard for the egregious wounds, the really big ones. That can feel really hard. Oh my God, how do I heal that? Or how do I integrate that? What has to happen is that you see it as a thing that's going to set you free. Right? And it is a part of what you came here to experience so that you could live the life that you're meant to live. And that is the truth. A gazillion people have stories about that, right? You had experiences that you needed to have in order to grow and develop and create whatever you're here to create in this life. I would not be doing this work that I am doing in my life had I not experienced the wounds that I experienced. It led me directly to this. So I am grateful for them. I integrate them. I see them as a part of my contract here. And I do take responsibility for them. I've done the work to heal those parts of me, right? There's other parts I'm still healing, right? But that has led me to the path that I'm on. So we all have that in some way. You required a specific learning in order to get to the next level, in order to be all of who you are, in order to give your gifts in the world. You know, had I not been wounded around my own sexuality, I wouldn't have had the compassion and the understanding to be able to help other people with theirs. And that's the truth. I had to go through my own journey of sexual empowerment in order to help others with theirs. And I wouldn't have realized the importance of it. It might not have even been on my radar. I wouldn't have dedicated my life to it if I didn't see it as important, right? And so in those wounds, there's always gold. There's always some gold. There's some growth and expansion that is there when we are able to break through and have the healing that we're meant to have there. It's such a beautiful, beautiful thing. And your wounds will allow your heart's desire to manifest in the world. Sometimes we have to get back to that heart's desire in a circuitous way, or what can feel like a circuitous way, but it's really exactly what it needed to be. And so we have to be able to see our wounds and acknowledge the needs that are in the wounds in order to shift to a new place. Or we will keep rewounding ourselves. We will keep having the abusive boyfriend show up, or whatever the pattern is that on the external that manifests because of that wound, right? And so as long as we stay the victim around sex or around money or around love or relationships or betrayal or whatever the thing is that we feel victimized by, we won't be empowered, right? Victimization and empowerment in the law of polarity are the opposites, right? So again, if victimization is present, so is empowerment. And sometimes it's a very, it's not even a huge flip to get to the other piece of that, the other side of that, right? But you can't be in the victim place and be in the empowered place, but the empowerment is already there and it's available to you, right? Your empowerment about the thing that you're victimized about is present. That is the law of polarity. So that is there. Joyce says, my teacher Jeffrey says that your trauma is your fastest path to your curriculum or purpose. Jeffrey is a friend of mine. I know exactly who you're talking about. I've heard that sentence before. Yeah, absolutely. Traumas are hard and they always have a reason. And I know that, there's always someone that will be like, oh, but some things that happen are horrible. How can we say that? But there's a bigger thing at work. We don't always see what it is, right? We don't always see. Sometimes we see it 50 years later when people were like, oh, the Holocaust really happened, or whatever. I mean, there is always a purpose. And a lot of times that purpose is much bigger than us. It's about our world. So we'll talk more about this. If there are wounds that are like tugging at you, that need, are calling you home, that are calling for healing, it's time to look at it, and if that means you get a therapist to help you with it, or you get some support around you, set yourself up to do that in a good way so that you can really have the space you need, because you don't need to live in that trauma anymore, right? And that path is different for everyone. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not, but maybe it could be, right? Maybe it's an idea that it needs to be hard and it needs to be long and drawn out. What about wounds that you really don't remember? How do we get to them? Yeah, there's a lot of schools of thought around this. And I think that sometimes we don't need to remember in order to get the gold from the experience, right? Because you feel it in your body. It doesn't need to be a conscious remembering. And there is actually evidence now that that some of the approaches to healing that go back into the wound and bring it out, and that it actually rewounds. Like we're actually having clients like or patients or whatever, like relive the wound in a way that is actually harmful. So there's actually evidence of that now. So I don't think that it's always that we need to remember, and I know sometimes people are like, oh, I know this thing happened to me and I want to know what it was. And, that's every individual's choice, how you want to approach that. What is true though, is that it got lodged in the subconscious. Certainly if it happened before age 7, it's in your subconscious. It doesn't necessarily matter what really happened, but what did it come here to teach you? That's really the key. What is it that it came to teach that you need to learn from it, or that you're here to help others with? I think a lot of times, again, those wounds are about how we are then going to be in service to others, and we can't be in service if we don't really understand. Can I speak to perfectionism maybe next class? Yes, definitely. Relationship is how I seem to find all my wounds. Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest way they show up, right? I mean, it's like you're always going to have the people show up in your life that are there to teach you about the parts of the places in yourself where you need to grow. I mean, that's what relationships do. That's their one of their greatest functions. I'm not going to say their greatest function, but one of their greatest functions. I think that relationships are meant to bring us joy as well. So, and I don't want to shortchange that. And I think sometimes people do. Yes. Is it okay that you still don't really want to know? Can you still heal? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that we can make choices about how things are going to continue to impact us or control us or not. And we can move through them in many, many different ways. So we can talk more about this. This is obviously, a big topic. And I'm happy to talk more next time about this too. Do you think if our mother experienced trauma when we were in her womb, that trauma affects us too? Yeah, I do. And I think, again, there's a lot of evidence of that. There's a lot of evidence that what happens when we are in the womb still will impact us. It will impact our consciousness. So I'm going to save, I have some stuff on patterns that I want to talk about next week. I know we're at time. I just want to talk very briefly about one of your assignments this week. Because in order to create the things that we want, we have to be very clear about our need. Okay. So come back to that. So I gave you a sheet to really figure out your financial need. So these are just some examples of things that would go on your financial need sheet. So this is to look at everything you need money for, you want money for, I should say. But this is need. So it's like there's need, and then there can be another level, which would be ideal want, right? What are all of the things that you spend money on a monthly basis, right? And then what's the annual amount? It's a very simple worksheet. You may need to print out a couple of copies of it or do it, whatever. You can do it on your computer, however you want to do it. But really think about everything. How much do I spend on entertainment each month? How much do I spend on food, clothing? What does it cost to feed your kitties or, whatever, like all the things, so it's the rent, it's all the bills, it's, it's the credit cards, it's, whatever. And then make sure that you add taxes, right? So you're going to add, depending on how your taxes go, a minimum of 15%, if not up to more like 28% or even 40% taxes. So that should be your last row. There should be a tax line. So I want you to do that and get real clear for next time what the financial need is. Because if you're not clear, what people tend to do all the time is like, oh, I want to make $1 million. I want to make $250,000, like whatever. It's like, okay, for what? Right? It just sounds good. It just sounds good to make $1 million. Like, okay, but it's not going to lodge in your body, right? Back to what we were talking about all night. Like, the vibration that really resonates with that isn't going to be there if you're just like, oh, it just sounds cool to make $1 million or $500,000 or something, right? So if you get very clear what the need is, then you feel it, right? It's like, yes, this is what I need to pay for the things and to have the life that I want to have, right? And be sure to include travel and vacations and things, right? Like if you take them, which, you know, hopefully we all take some time off and do something nice for ourselves, like be sure to include those things. Okay. If we are married, we have our finances together. Yes, do your expenses. I mean, do it in the way that makes sense for you, Gladys. But yeah, I would try to like do it for yourself as much as possible. This is about taking responsibility for yourself. Yes, sometimes we are connected financially to someone else and sharing certain bills and things. But really, if you could apportion what you need, this is for you. Okay. Because your partner is going to make the money they're going to make, and they're going to do the thing that they're going to do the way they're going to do it. You can't actually control that. As much as we like to think we can, we actually can't. So the part you get to control is you. So yes. All right. So yes, there are a few assignments in there, but this is the main one for next week. So I want you to take a look. Everything should be in the portal that you need. Please let me know if there's anything you're not getting. I'm going to really figure out what's going on with the system and why it didn't send you emails. You should be getting regular emails from me. Yes, you do. You already have access to the last live class. It is in the portal. So it is your responsibility to please watch those classes. Please don't get behind. Okay. It's been 2 weeks that it has been in the portal. So that's enough time. And that's why just email me. That's why I try to break this up. You know, there are some weeks where we're going to be going back to back, but I did try to break this up because I want you to have enough time to stay caught up. I don't want people to get behind because it's going to be much more effective if you do this together, right? We have a vibration as a class, right? We're creating an energy towards this. And so if everybody is there and with it, it's more powerful. So please do try to not get behind. They will always be put in the portal within a couple of days. I try to get it up the next day. Most of the time it is actually up the next day, but I always within 48 hours, I'll get it in there. Okay. Email. Will people post their art on the Facebook page? Pretty please. Start it, Jory. Start it. Post yours. Other people can post. Okay. Awesome. All right. Thank you all. This is good work. You're doing it. Your miracle is already here. You don't have to attract it. You have to be open to it, and you have to resonate with it. This is what we're doing. So let's get really clear what it is that you need, and we're going to keep building from here. So there's some really important work ahead, and you know, I want you to have the things that you want to have, and I want you to have them sooner and not in 10 years. So let's do that. So stay vigilant with it, keep going, and thank you all for being here. I wish you a wonderful week, 2 weeks. Let me just double check, when is our next meeting? Sorry, 1 second. Let me let me share for a second. Sorry, don't have it in my brain. Anybody else have it in their brain? Here we go. Nope, that's not the one. You're welcome, Georgie. Thank you. Nope, I closed my calendar. All right, I have it closed. So please check the schedule. I think that it's in 2 weeks. Yeah, okay, February 13th, Gladys says. Great. Yeah, so I think it's 2 weeks, and then that's when we're going to have 3 in a row, because then we're going to do a coaching call on February 20th, and then we'll have another teaching call the following week. So there's going to be a little 3-week where we're going to be back to back to back. So use these next 2 weeks to get caught up. If you're not, please do all the assignments, and please do come pop in on the Facebook group and post your art and the things that are coming up for you. This is a great time to be talking about it. And then for the buddies, again, I strongly suggest that you get a buddy. People are already connecting. That's a good way to connect. If you're for some reason not on Facebook and you want a buddy, write to me and let me know. I can do my best to help. So, but you've got to raise your hand and say, I want a buddy, because otherwise then we don't know who doesn't have one or needs one. All right. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful night. Bye.